And now the #1 story of the week, the future of the federal workforce. Several members of Congress, including Republican James Comer of Kentucky, and experts from outside the government, including one from the Heritage Foundation, have come out in support of Schedule F. President Trump created Schedule F to make it easier to fire federal employees. 49 officials from administrations of both parties signed an open letter this week against the implementation of the executive order. Two of the signatories are Danny Werfel, managing director and partner at Boston Consulting Group, former controller at OMB for Barack Obama, and Allan Burman, president at Jefferson Solutions, former administrator of federal procurement policy for George H.W. Bush. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. Al, you first. Why'd you sign this letter?
Thanks very much for having me, Francis. Good seeing you again. I signed the letter because I thought it was a mistake. I thought it was misguided to go down this path for an institution like OMB that over the years has provided such great support to the White House and to any president. And you really have institutional memory from that organization that is helping presidents of both parties figure out how to get their budgets done, how to manage their legislative agenda, how to deal with management issues across the government. And I think by turning this into a different kind of an organization, you're going to invite different sorts of folks who will be looking to come into the organization. And a lot of that memory and a lot of those skill sets will be lost.
Danny, welcome. It's good to see you again. Same question to you. Why'd you sign this letter?
Well, actually, I remember my first day at OMB as a civil servant, and in orientation, you learn and you're trained that you don't work for the president, you work for the institution of the presidency when you're at OMB. As a civil servant, you set politics aside and you drive to the right policy outcomes. And my big concern with this executive order and classification is it would position OMB employees to be incentivized to follow politics rather than policy. And it's the wrong outcome for the organization and therefore the wrong outcome for the American people.
So, Danny, you get at the point that I wanted to make from the words of Congressman Comer. We invited him to join us. His schedule didn't permit him to be on the program this week, but he said this in October. Prior to the growth of the executive branch, policy-making positions were traditionally held by appointees. However, with the growth of the bureaucracy, career civil servants came to hold the positions. Civil servants are not appointed and as such are not held accountable by the voters, the president, or anyone else. This executive order will strengthen accountability by requiring civil servants holding policy-making positions to be accountable to the president. Danny, I'll start with you. Al, I would like your input as well. What do you agree with and what do you disagree with about the congressman's statement there, Danny?
Well, I disagree with the notion that that civil servants are quote unquote policymakers. The administrations put in political officials who have the ultimate determination on the policies that will be advanced. And the role of the civil servant is to provide all the right analytics, evidence, institutional knowledge to support those policymakers. Their role is really to focus on what are the right public policy and public administration outcomes to guide the policymakers who are controlled by the political party. So I think what's misguided about the statement is this notion that civil servants are driving policies versus the political layer of the government.
Al, what's your takeaway from the statement by Congressman Comer?
Yes, and I would agree with Danny on the same point. I think you have a layer of political appointees at the senior level of the organization. I'm going to talk specifically about OMB, and I spent some 20 years at that institution. I was both a career person and then I was a political appointee. And you, as a career person, you're an analyst. You're providing advice to your senior leadership on how best to carry out the mission that you're being given. And there was a comment I remember when I first joined the organization that said, you know, if the president decided that he wanted to figure out a way to take 10 tons of manure and put them on the steps of the old executive office building, now the Eisenhower executive office building, he'd go to OMB to figure out how best to do it, how they do it most efficiently and effectively. And I think that's what you're talking about. You're talking about skilled people who know their jobs, similar to having skilled people in NIH or CDC, these other institutions, where it's important to have that set of skills and that institutional memory to make that organization function well for any president.
We have about a minute left, so 30 seconds apiece, and Al, I'll start with you. We've talked about the potential downsides. Do you see any potential upsides to this, or is it all negative?
Well, you know, I think anybody who's worked in the government for any length of time knows it's a heck of a deal trying to hire people that you want and trying to get rid of people who are dead wood. My view is there's very little dead wood in an organization like OMB. People come there and thrive in it. People want information yesterday. If you don't love that life, you're not going to be staying around. And so I don't think it really applies or affects the OMB staff in any way.
Danny, any potential upside to Schedule F, or do you see it as all downside?
All downside. Look, the day Mitch Daniels arrived for the Bush administration, the civil servant workforce at OMB was excited to get started. The day Peter Orszag arrived for the Obama administration as the OMB director, the civil servant workforce at OMB was excited and ready to get started. And I'm really concerned that this schedule and this classification changes the construct for OMB employees who it's in the brochure to serve whatever administration comes in, the best public policy analysis, and that's the way we should move going forward.
Danny Werfel, Al Burman, thanks both very much.